And you're in.
All right.
All right, welcome to the Training Edge with Dave and Stu. So, for those of you who are just joining us, we had some major technical difficulties with our audio, and thank goodness for our extremely competent technical team who figured out what the issue was.
Yeah.
Stu and I would never have
Oh,
been
forget it.
able.
Yeah. There's no way. There's no way.
No, no. So that's fantastic. So, on behalf of my co-host Stu Burton, my name is David Spear, and this is the Training Edge with Dave and Stu, a weekly podcast where we talk about health, fitness, wellness, strength training,
That's right.
bodybuilding, everything related to our overall health. And today, what we're going to focus on is nutrition, specifically
Mm.
nutrition for summer. We have some very specific questions that we're going to be answering. And again, before we start, I just want to say that, my profession is more exercise science, physiology, understanding the systems of the body. Nutrition itself is a study in biochemistry and a study in the interaction of substances, foods such as, or the breakdown of substances like carbohydrates, proteins, fats, how they affect various areas of the body and how they also affect performance. And whether that performance is in a 75-year-old or a 25-year-old, it's still relative performance.
Correct.
So, I'm coming at this more anecdotally, things that I've done in the past, things that I've seen work, things that I've seen not necessarily work. And, just wanted to kind of put that out there before we start answering questions. But we will be having on our show a registered dietitian from Arizona who has a lot of experience in this area to be able to answer questions a little bit more specifically than I could. So, Stu,
Yes.
why don't we get started and start talking nutrition?
All right. All right. I'm gonna jump on our first question right here. It reads, I'm a 43-year-old female. I live alone and recently got into working out. I would say I have a few more pounds to lose, but I look forward to getting in better shape. What kinds of foods should I stay away from over the summer, and what should I be eating? That's that's
Yeah,
that's that's pretty vague.
very general, very, very,
Yeah,
yeah, very
right.
open-ended kind of
But
question.
but
Yeah,
we are here to give them the edge, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
let's work a
yeah,
little bit with it.
absolutely.
I'm going to jump on this.
Yeah,
At 43 years of age, okay, and you're just trying to see what foods you should stay away from. You don't say how much you weigh, and we don't know the
hmm
extent of your level in terms of exercise, how many years you've been training, and what kind of training you do. But what we want to do is we want to look for some things like this as we're getting into the summer. Typically, the weather's going to be a lot more hot, right? So
hmm
one of the simplest things that I like to tell people to do if they were to come to me with a question exactly like this is, keep your meals light.
yeah,
Keep them light. Focus on things like hydration. Keep the meals. Again, I wouldn't put a lot of red meat in at this time of the year. I would stick more with what we would call in bodybuilding like white protein sources. So more like fish, a little more chicken,
sure.
definitely quite a bit of vegetables and small meals. Again, once you really start to reduce the amount of food that you consume at one sitting, you'll be very surprised at how your body starts to react with that. And at the same time, also, I would also urge that individual to be a little consistent with what they're doing in terms of eating. Because if you're busy throughout the course of the day and you need energy, then you want to have small, light meals periodically spaced throughout the day that's convenient to you.
Yeah, I think those are excellent points. One thing I wanted to add is that when you're talking about small light meals, and we know we have a problem with this in this country, sort of the large portion sizes that we see in restaurants,
Yeah,
that people are often eating
yeah.
at each meal. I think that you're looking at things like, basically a piece of fish that is the size of the palm of your hand, a handful of vegetables. maybe even adding some nuts to that to add a little bit of protein, a salad, things like that. So
Right.
I think, but one thing that I wanted to state is that, understanding that small meals are going to be probably more beneficial in the summertime. It's not an easy thing to do, to decrease the size of the meal. So I think what you need to do is you need to do it, I hate to say it, but piecemeal. You
Hmm.
need to do it in a way where it's gradual. You can't just go from like eating a massive meal to eating a tiny meal,
Right.
because you're going to get hungry, and
Right.
then you're going to feel like you're deprived.
Right.
So that would be one thing I would say. Just don't necessarily deprive yourself, and gradually decrease the size of the meals. And then, like you said, once you start eating smaller meals, you get used to it. And especially if you maintain that consistency in the type of foods you eat, it becomes part of your routine.
Um,
Um,
I got a message that just came in. If you're done
yeah,
with saying
sure,
what you want to say on that topic,
sure,
I
sure.
would like to jump in this. We have Nando that contacted us. He's a 51-year-old male. He put
Okay,
on 18 pounds during COVID, which is
okay,
pretty normal.
okay.
He's 309. Keto worked in the past, but getting into ketosis
Yeah,
almost impossible now.
yeah,
He's stating,
yeah.
getting into that point. Um, I think he wants to go down to about 260,
Hmm.
and he has a very sedentary lifestyle.
Hmm.
How important is low carb versus caloric intake?
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's address the keto
Yeah.
diet.
Yeah.
Again, this is speaking anecdotally and from more personal experience. Ketogenic diets are, in my estimation, again, this is my opinion, are severe in the sense of what they require you to do. So, in order to remain in ketosis, you're probably eating somewhere under 50 grams of carbohydrates a day, if not 25 grams of carbohydrates a day. Those individuals who are maintaining ketosis are peeing on a stick to basically indicate that they are in ketosis.
Right.
You've got to be extremely regimented. So there is a group of people out here in Arizona that I know who have tried ketogenic diets, and of the group, one of them has maintained it over the course of, let's say, the last year and a half.
Right.
He is an extremely regimented individual.
Right.
So Fernando, I understand, he's maybe tried ketogenic diets before, but to me, the severity of the diet to me is not worth what you have to sacrifice. I
Mhm.
understand that they are diets that can be beneficial in many, many ways, obviously in weight loss, in terms of utilizing ketones for energy. Great. But it is so severe. It requires so much discipline.
Right.
There is a major sacrifice being
Right.
done there.
Right.
So there would be some other options that I
Right.
would suggest for Nando. And one of the things is he's got to start moving. He's
Right.
put on 18 pounds in COVID.
Right.
Got to start getting out there.
Right.
Got to start increasing that cardiovascular activity.
Right. Right.
Um, and I would say, and I'll let you answer this, is that smaller meals might be a real benefit to him,
Right.
um, as he's increasing his activity level.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
I think with him being 51, we could expect that his testosterone level will be a little bit lower,
Yeah.
right? Will be declining, which is normal for most men, but we don't want that to be an issue. So the way how the body processes the foods and things like that will be different. But if you're already finding out, if you already realize that engaging in keto, you're having difficulties with it,
Yeah.
this is a direct sign. You know, when you see something, because I'm going to tell you right now, all diets work and all diets don't work.
I agree with you. Yeah.
They all
100%.
they're all going to work, and then
Right.
they're going to stop, because
Right.
you have to remember that your body is organic. So it's constantly it's changing, it's adjusting. It's the weather, it's your sleep, it's your exercise, it's the lack
Yep.
of, it's
Yep.
stress. It's so many different things that are going on. What I would suggest to you is, first and foremost, is to make sure that you're eating clean, healthy things.
Hmm.
That's the first thing. I'm a big believer in, and when I work menus with my clients, um, adding food to the diet first. And what would even come before that is actually like a cleanse, right?
Hmm.
And then we go into the actual, because with a cleanse, the body is more inclined to absorb. So depending on the individual that's coming in, we would start with a cleanse. Sometimes we start with the calories first and then go to a cleanse and then come back,
Ah,
which creates a very very good environment, because a lot of people that are eating crappy food, they go and they start a cleanse. It's also very strict. It's a very big shock to the body.
yeah, it's a deprivation
Yes,
method.
yeah.
Right.
We,
Right.
we, we believe in first converting. So you want to substitute, look at what you're consuming and start to replace. Say, okay, look at a plate, and then you say, oh, this amount of the plate is going to be 4 ounces or 6 ounces at 309 pounds. You know, you're a guy that can consume 6 to 8 ounces probably very easily of protein.
Sure.
So I would start with that amount, because you don't want to be ravenous. Make it fish, make it chicken breast, even chicken thighs, chicken legs, not so much red meat. Then the next largest portion of the plate, I would incorporate some form of fibrous carb,
Uh-huh.
something that's going to fill you up. So we're going to use, when we say fibrous carb, we're going to talk about broccoli, we're going to talk about cauliflower, string beans, asparagus, these type of things. Not so much the leafy greens, which they're not bad, but for someone with an appetite, you want to fill the stomach. You want to get
Yeah, you
the
want it to
satiate.
stick.
Right. You want to feel satiated.
Right.
And then I would add the smallest portion of the plate is the carbohydrate. Then from there, you start to, manipulate it just a little bit. But also very important, like what you said, Dave, probably the most important thing is to gain 18 pounds over the course of these weeks that we've been inside is an indication that you're not moving. Because if that would have been a year, how much weight would that have been as far as a weight
I
gain?
agree. Yeah.
So that means that the lack of movement is really contributing greatly to your increase in body weight, that 18 pounds.
Right. You're
You know,
absolutely right. Yeah.
so
Great.
that my advice would be to clean up the food first. Keep them so that you feel satiated. Clean them up. Then start to start to get into like cutting them out and making them a little bit smaller. These type of things. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I would say, as far as Nando's question, 18 pounds in a 3 month period. You're right. Over the course of a year, that's over 50 pounds. But the point is that what you can tell right from that is the amount of weight being put on in a pressure situation indicates that he's probably not eating whole foods.
Right.
There's you're not, if he's maintaining that portion size and eating whole foods, he's not putting on 18 pounds
Right.
because the body is able to utilize that nutrition in a
Right.
much more efficient and
Right.
effective
Right.
way than if he's eating Doritos or eating potato
Right.
chips.
Right. Soda.
So,
Yeah.
so those,
That's what we would call it's definitely adipose tissue combination
right.
fat water. This is
Yeah.
quick. This is quick weight. The good thing
Right.
the good thing about this is that quick weight could be lost also relatively
Right.
quick.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
don't freak out. You're not in the best situation, but you're also like you're in a situation where if you understand what's happening, you can navigate through the highs and the lows emotionally and realize that, hey, this was quick weight. If I
Right.
started just make these adjustments, I started to move around a little bit more, you're going to drop that 18 pounds.
Yes.
You, you,
Yes.
you, you know, and then start to, hook up with someone that can give you the right information, the right exercise regimen, and then you'll be on your way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. All right, let's get to our next question. How can I get leaner as we are entering summer? I'm 120 pounds, 5'8".
Mm.
I'm female. I eat pretty healthy. I'm no longer a vegetarian, but was one a few years ago. So I think, your point of smaller portion sizes and maintaining those sort of white proteins is a really good guideline, you know, and getting leaner, again, talking about carbohydrates being, let's say, the smallest portion of a plate, because carbohydrates, we also know, hold a lot of water. And I think the lean part of the physique will come from eating very, what you said, like you said, clean protein. and allowing the body to efficiently and effectively metabolize that protein. Again, if you eat a lot of protein, that's also not that great, right?
Right,
Because
right.
as the increased nitrogen levels, you're going to pee out a lot of that nitrogen.
Right.
We find. So how can I get leaner as I'm entering summer? Two things come to mind. One is eating clean, like you said. The other is increasing cardiovascular activity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree on that too. Definitely again going back to watching the foods, but 120 pound 5'8",
Yeah,
that can be a good 120, and it could be not the best of 120. That might make somebody 120 feel
yeah,
happy, right? Feel comfortable.
yeah,
And she's obviously asking, so she
yeah.
feels she could be a little bit tighter.
Sure.
At that, I would say a couple of things. Again, look at the meals that you're taking in, and what I would do is now I would actually start to take whatever complex carbohydrates, so things like rice,
Hmm.
these type of things, that pasta, anything like that, pizza, and start to add a little bit more in the way of veg a couple of days, and then turn it around and add a little bit more protein on a couple of days. So for instance, the carbohydrates is always going to be where you would want to maybe cut from. I would say cut from. And then what I would do is if I had a whole baked potato, eat half a baked potato. Instead of not adding something, add a little bit more broccoli. So two florets to make up for the half of baked
Yep.
potato
Yep.
that you cut away. Do that for a couple of days. The next time you come around, instead of having that whole baked potato, cut again that baked potato, have half a baked potato.
Hmm.
Maybe a little bit more on the protein end this time. You add just maybe a little bit more protein instead of adding the fibrous carb. So I love to seesaw calories, and making sure that the body is getting a little bit of something. You never want to totally always cut. I was taught a long time ago. Leon Brown once told me. He says you can't take out and not put in. He says so if
Sure.
you take something
Sure.
out, you got to put something else back in.
Sure.
And by doing things like this, it doesn't shock the body.
Right.
So what happens is that it's more it's more accepted. The body doesn't feel like it's being shaken up, and that's what you really want to do. You want to be kind.
Yeah.
You don't want to be too brutal.
Yeah.
Um,
You
I,
make a really good point. Yeah.
I have somebody that just sent another one in. I think
Yeah.
we're good on that. I want to get on this. Sam K says,
Yeah.
amazing advice. Thank you very much, Sam. We truly appreciate it. Is it more useful to the body to eat a variety of high water foods, watermelon, cucumbers, etc.,
Hmm.
rather than just drinking water in summer? What do you say, Dave?
Yeah. I mean, so you're thinking of like celery and
Yeah,
fruits like watermelon. So
cucumber.
here's what I find, and from a nutritional standpoint, you're probably getting a little bit more in terms of the vitamins than you would just from water.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, though, eating a lot of watermelon is very bloating. I can't. I tend to kind of bloat a little
Right.
bit.
Hmm.
So, but if you need something solid, then I guess, then it's probably not a bad idea to have some celery or watermelon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
I don't think it can really hurt you.
right,
If you're out, let's say in the beach, um, I'd much rather see somebody go out on the beach and maybe bring some sliced up watermelon and have that under the sun. You're moving around, even if you're laying out, you're getting a little something extra in you rather
right.
than just drinking water.
Correct.
In a situation like that, if you're going to be running around, you're outside, yes, do that. Obviously, you're going to have your water. There is more substance to what it is you're taking in, and you are getting more calories as opposed to water. So it could be beneficial. It can help you have a better day at the
Okay.
beach.
But what if you're at home? It's
Right,
summertime. You're at home. You're in air conditioning, or you're not, but you're
right,
at home.
right, right.
You crack open a half a watermelon. You're going to eat you're going to have 3 slices of watermelon, or you're going to drink water.
Right, right. Yeah, it's the situation that you're in.
So here's another thought, and this is some people do this. They will cut a vegetable into the water, allowing you to gain a little bit more vitamins. So cucumber water, or water with a fruit in it, or something like that, to give it a little bit more taste. It's more palatable
Hmm.
for some people, and you get that extra,
Yeah, yeah.
get the extra nutrients as
Yes.
well. So
I want to say thank you to Amir. He's
Thank you.
saying he's got a great show. He's loving the show. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
and to
Appreciate
everyone.
it.
Yes, I agree with Dave 100%, 100%. I really like what I find is in the morning sometimes I do juiced celery. So I will do like
Yeah.
juiced celery. Sometimes I add beets to my celery. More often than not, I actually do that. And I'm because I'm looking to create different things. So when I'm eating, a lot of times I am I'm looking for a certain effect.
Hmm.
So if I'm adding my beets and I'm having it with my celery and I might add something else to it, like a protein and so forth, I'm looking to get really good hydration. A lot of times I'll do celery and coconut water as well. Which is amazing at hydration. So if you are out in the hot weather and you're moving around, you want to have enough in your system that you can move around and not feel faint.
Absolutely.
And also these things will not take you greatly out of ketosis. If you do go out of ketosis, and let's say someone like Nando, it won't be for an extremely long period of time because you can go in and out of ketosis. People think, oh, I do this and I'm out. No, that's not the case because it
Right.
depends on how active you are. You
It also
burning it off, you'll
yeah.
go back in.
Right. And it depends on the types of sugars you're taking in.
Right,
If you're mixing celery with coconut water, you're not really mixing very high sugar substances.
right,
So,
right,
you know, chances are the simple carbohydrates that you're taking in, if anything, is small. So you're
right.
right.
Yeah.
The number of grams of carbs is actually quite low there.
Um,
Um, so all right, let's move on. So another question. I want to know about protein. What
okay.
kinds of protein should I be consuming over the summer? Is red meat a no-no?
Hmm. You want me to jump on that
Yeah, go ahead.
one? Red meat is not a no-no. It all comes down to again what it is you're trying to do. If you're someone that's against red meat, then red meat is a no-no for you. You're not going to eat the red meat, right?
Right,
But if
right.
you're someone like that likes red meat and wants to consume red meat, I will tell you this: um, for many years, and I come from an era where athletes used to have a big meal and then would go and train,
Hmm.
and that's the way how it was really done. Then things started to change. They would start to have like lighter meals, protein drinks, going and working out, and so forth. But for a long time, it was eat a large meal and go and work out. Um, but one thing that we always tend to do, again, and I'm going to go back again to portion size, is that as we get ready for a competition, we'll shrink the amount of food that you start to consume. It just helps to shrink everything. Because if you reduce your food, your stomach shrinks, your waist starts to shrink, right?
And you
So
can't
I
take
would
in as
say that.
much. Right.
Sorry, Dave, go
You
ahead.
can't take in as much. You're right. I
Right.
mean, yeah,
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 so I would always say, cut down on the amount of the red meat. This is summertime. Lighter foods go through the system a little bit better, a little bit faster.
absolutely. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you could have a high metabolism that actually burns through red meat very well. But if you find you're not getting what it is that you want and you have a pretty good diet, you got to make a change. A lot of times, look to the heavier sources in terms of calories or digestion foods and alternate that with something that is easier to digest or something that's lighter. That's one of the
Sure.
quickest ways to make changes in your body. But a lot of times, people get locked into this is how I started off. And if the goal was to build muscle, then I have to stay with that. But the weather changes, you change, you're trying to create a different look, which means you can't continue with the same with the same program or
Yeah.
the same approach that you started. You
Hmm.
have to constantly keep your eyes and your mind open to change. If you get too locked in, it makes it
Yeah.
hard.
So one thing I wanted to, just touch on because you make a good point as far as nutrition is concerned, but I just want to let the audience know that, and maybe some of you do know this, is that we are constantly out of balance and then in balance. So in other
Right.
words, our bodies are constantly adjusting, whether it be blood pressure, heart rate, whatever you want
Alkalinity.
to call it, circulation doesn't matter.
Right.
And Stu's right, you're constantly changing. So what we're talking about, I think, a major take-home message here, and I'm sure that the registered dietitian with whom we speak in a couple of weeks will agree, is that this is about balance. This is about, eating for life. It's not about necessarily, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to deprive myself of this for 6 weeks. And then I'm going to try and make that, the diet that I subscribe to for the rest of my life. It's not going to work.
Right.
And a lot of what you're talking about is not deprivation. So take away this, but add that, right? Make your meals smaller, and then obviously as the seasons change, things are going to change. Maybe
Right.
your meals get a little bit heavier. So it's all about balance. And I totally understand that people have specific questions about who they are, in terms of, their height, their weight, their training, weight loss, all of those things. But again, the major takeaway here is it is about balance.
Right.
So you could try something. You made a great point before, which is all diets work and all diets don't. It's so true. So if I go out and just eat grapefruits for 7 days, I'm going to lose weight. Great, it worked. Can I go and, I can't sustain myself on
Right.
grapefruit.
It's too extreme.
So absolutely, totally agree, on that topic. And it is true. We're constantly adjusting. So we constantly have to adjust what we
Right.
put in our bodies.
Right. It's
For
very
sure.
important. One of the best things really is just get a basic understanding of foods.
Yes.
As a young kid, as a young man, I went through different editions of the Nutritional Almanac, and I
Sure.
would pick them up and read it and try and understand it, and then trying to also fit the response that they say that I should receive from consuming X. Did I receive it? Because
Right.
what they say and how your body reacts, what we
Correct.
say and how your body reacts is unique to each individual. So what you want to know is okay, this is an apple. What from a physical standpoint, what is this apple going to do for me? Okay, is it going to give me energy? Is it going to make me sleepy? Is it going to make me feel like I'm cracked out? Is it, so
Yep.
once you start to
Everybody
understand,
different response. Yep.
yeah, you start to put things together. You start putting
Right.
them together. You start saying, hey, you know what? When I did that combination, my energy was so good for the next 6 hours. And then you lock onto something that you start to understand that works really well for you. But there is a basics. Again, go over your proteins. Look at all the proteins. Look at your eggs. Look at your chicken. Look at your fish. Look at your red meat. See how they digest. Oh, wow, I just ate a 4-ounce steak. It took me like 6 to 8 hours to feel like I was empty. Next time you eat a chicken breast, and you might find that it takes you 12 hours to feel empty. You may be somebody that your body works better with the red meat. Now, does that mean that you want to destroy red meat all the time? Probably not. But
Right.
so you say to yourself, okay, what is a good balance? And
Absolutely.
this is what this all comes down to.
Absolutely. And, one of the things I just wanted to mention, we put it up in the show notes. It's a link to a book called The Optimum Nutrition Bible by Patrick Holford. And it looks like this. It's got a big apple on it. It's a great book. Fairly a thick book. I think you could use it as a reference guide. You don't have to read it from cover to cover, but there's a lot of information in there about individuality. But one thing I wanted to mention, and you kind of touched on this, is a lot of the information that's out there about nutrition is empirical information. So it's studies that have been done looking at the effect of various carbohydrates and proteins and fats and things like that in various groups of people. But again, it is so individualistic because everybody responds differently. So you could read 6 studies on, the I don't know, detrimental effects of red meat, and meanwhile, you could be a person who metabolizes it well, who handles it well, all of that. So it's really important to begin to read between the lines. We talk about this all the time on this show.
Right.
A lot of what we know about fitness and nutrition come from popular magazines and articles and how to lose, 50 pounds in 5 minutes and all of that. The point is, you got to read between the lines. You got to see where they're getting this information. And then you have to then apply it to you.
Right.
And see if it works for you.
Right.
And I think that's, that's probably the best way to go about it.
Interestingly, it's I'll use one that I think most people might really understand. It's like someone that's used to consuming coffee, frequently throughout the day, right?
Right.
So they don't even really get a high anymore. They're just
Right.
drinking the coffee, they're enjoying the taste. And
Right.
I've heard people tell me, I have clients that told me the other, I could drink a cup of coffee and go to sleep. And I,
Right.
and I was
Right.
like, wow.
Caffeine has no effect. Yeah.
Right? So I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, that's a person who is not sensitive to the caffeine.
Hmm.
Now, many years ago, there was a cutting stack called an ECA stack. It was
Hmm.
ephedrine, it was caffeine, and it was an aspirin, right?
Hmm.
Different. I'm not going to go through the whole combinations, but it was a combination of them, and you would use this. And for certain reasons, when you have these compounds, these three things together, it's very good at burning body fat. But I've had people also in the past that when they use that stack, they never felt the kick from the caffeine in there. But it was because their body was already so desensitized to it from consuming it all the time.
Correct.
So even though you might hear something that's scientifically proven and it looks good, because of what we practice in our daily life, doesn't mean it's going to give us what it is that scientifically it says should give us. So this is why you want to look at things very closely, because if your body is so sensitive or not as sensitive to that caffeine, you might need a higher dose. You understand? Or you may need to come off of that coffee for a while so that your body can become sensitive to it and then reintroduce something back in.
Yeah.
But it is it's a journey. It's a journey about learning about yourself, paying
Yeah.
really close attention, and learning about foods and the way how the foods affect your body.
Yeah. No, great point. And this also goes for training, right? We've talked about adaptation. So once you adapt to something, your body no longer sees it as something new, something unique. And therefore, you have to adjust. And that also gets to the cyclical nature of nutrition. So, we're talking about this now in terms of summer, you're going to do certain things. In the winter, you'll probably do other things, but this is a cyclical nature of nutrition. There's not one thing you're going to do and you're going to follow it for 65 years.
Right,
You
right,
know,
right.
right? There's a cyclical nature here, even in areas like in Okinawa, Japan, and in areas of Italy and areas of Greece where they call them blue zones, where these
Right.
people
People live.
live to be like
Right.
over 100.
Right.
They're eating from the ground and they're doing their manual labor. There's still a cyclical nature of nutrition. They're not eating the exact same thing every
Right.
single day.
Right.
So that's a really important
Thank you,
point
David.
to kind of get across.
That,
So
that that's a real important one because people hear things and they just jump on it. Real
yeah,
quick, I have
yeah.
from Health Teach. Hi there, excellent guidance as always. What are 2 or 3 general signs that the body is in trouble in the summer heat? And what might be some good on the spot fixes for a
Mm,
generally healthy person?
yeah. So a couple of things to watch out for in the heat. You might want to talk about a little bit more nutrition related stuff, but I would say a couple of things to look out for in the heat. Number one, when you feel so if you're out in the heat and you're starting to feel your skin get really hot, this could be the beginning of like sort of like a dehydration leading to a heat exhaustion. So the next step to that is going to be you're going to start to get disoriented. Once you start to get disoriented, it's a little bit too late. What's happened is the amount of fluid in your body has actually decreased to the point where your blood is getting thicker, and therefore it's much more difficult for the heart to pump the amount of blood that's in there around the circulation. So now you're not really getting the oxygenation to the brain, and you're not getting that circulation to the periphery. So what happens? Well, you start to increase the flow to the periphery to start to sweat. And then, the next step is that you start to lose the ability to sweat. You start to lose the ability to cool off. Now
Right.
your body gets extremely hot, and then that can lead to heat stroke. But
Right.
I would say looking for things like my skin is getting hot, I'm starting to get disoriented. Those are
Headaches.
things to look out for
Headaches.
in the heat for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're feeling like headaches is coming
Yep.
on,
Mhm.
yeah, you want to be very very careful. And it is some very very serious situation because a lot of times people are not really truly aware, especially if you're running around, you're having fun. You
Correct.
might not be aware that the body is actually getting to a dangerous point.
Right.
So you know, every now and then, just stop, take a couple, drinks of water, some gulps of water. If you have melon, throw in a little watermelon. These things are very, very important to have around.
Absolutely.
Or also feeling nauseous.
Yes.
Nauseous is also
And why do we get nauseous? Because there's a lack of circulation to the GI tract.
right.
So we start to get nauseous because the blood is being redirected to the skin,
Yeah,
to sweat.
yeah,
One thing I wanted to mention too, you just touched on it, is that you want to be drinking before you go out in the heat.
mm,
So you want to reserve
yes,
in your body. So roughly 16 ounces, an
yes,
hour and a half before you go in the heat.
yeah,
Now you've got a reservoir. Then what you're going to do is you're going to add to that reservoir every 15, 20 minutes. You're going to take 8 ounces. What, like you said, a couple of gulps, but roughly an 8 ounce,
yeah,
8 ounces. And that should keep you hydrated over time. Now, another thing that you find too is that you're running around in the heat, you're burning a lot of sugar quickly. You may become hypoglycemic. So another thing to mention is, if you want to put an orange in your water, or if you have orange slices, something that is a high in sugar content fruit might be very helpful, especially if you're feeling like
yeah.
you're getting sluggish and real tired.
I mean, because you're out there in Arizona, so
Yeah.
Arizona's got to be piping right now.
Yeah, we're at most of the days. Well, last week was very hot. This week was not that hot. This
Oh,
week was beautiful. But I'm outside about 6:45 in the morning working out, and it's about no, it's not 100. It's probably 87, 88 degrees. But by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's 104, 105.
woo!
Yeah. So it's hot. It's hot. Concrete gets hot. The heat comes up from the ground. It's
Yeah, yeah.
it's it's
Woo,
hot.
woo.
So it's a good question.
I have another one. Sam K.
Yeah.
Is it an overall better idea to drink less caffeine in
Mm,
very hot weather?
yeah. So, what I would say is caffeine has been shown, again, through studies, to be a diuretic. And what that means is, diuresis is the removal of fluid from the system. Um, I would say this. I would say that it depends on what you're going to be doing. I would not suggest going and running a 10K, 6.2 miles, after drinking, two
Right,
cups of coffee. I wouldn't suggest that.
right, right,
If you're going to be in the heat, though, not necessarily exercising or doing anything strenuous, yeah, having a cup of coffee before you're in the heat, it's not like you're all of a sudden going to lose all the fluid in your system.
right,
Um, but what I would do is I would add to that, water. I would add to that a fluid that is not coffee. And again, you could drink decaf if you wanted to, unless you
right,
needed the caffeine.
right.
Um, so even though caffeine has been shown to be a performance enhancer, in the sense that
You gotta watch it.
yeah, even though, right, caffeine has been shown to burn fat efficiently, and be a performance enhancer for long distance type exercise, I would not necessarily do that in high heat.
Right,
So I'll be out here in Arizona and I'll see people running at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's pretty hot. It's 104, 105. That's hot.
right,
I wouldn't suggest that person has 2 cups of coffee beforehand. So
right.
you need to be very aware when you're going to drink your coffee or when you're going to have your caffeine, and also be aware of what kind of exertion level you're going to participate in after drinking that,
Awesome,
after
Dave.
having caffeine.
Thank you very much for tapping on that one, because I know quite a few people that like to use the caffeine
Yeah,
before working out.
yeah,
And a lot of them are doing these type of workouts outside. One thing I would also stress is that prior to going out, I like doing like a trace mineral, or taking a mineral
mhm,
supplement along with my water before which I would load. And then if I'm going to use caffeine to give me the, that desire to want to go out there and push, then you
right,
can use that, and then also have the supplemental water throughout the workout, which is imperative.
right,
You're always thinking about how to incorporate that water in a fashion that it's not going to break the momentum of the workout, and it should enhance what it is that you're doing.
right.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Love it.
So we've got another question here. Hey guys, I'm a 6'2", 210-pound male in great shape.
All
I'm
right.
happy with my body fat levels, but always lose weight in the summer.
Mm.
Will nutrition help cease that? I would say I have a well-balanced diet. I weight train, I swim, and spend a lot of time on the beach and jog. Okay, sounds good. So I'll take a crack at this, but I would say, okay, so body fat levels are, he's happy with those, right? Those are good according to him. He wants basically to keep the weight on and keep the muscle through nutrition. And one thing I would say is that we've been talking about decreasing the size of the portions. In this case, I would probably start to increase a little bit, right? We need a little bit more calories, a little bit more on the protein, especially weight training.
Yes.
So you don't want him to not have the protein to build off of because of his weight training. Right. So that's what I would say. I would say increasing those portion sizes. And
I think again, in paying attention to your body, because at that height and that weight, and it sounds that you're active enough that you're actually losing weight. That means you're tapping into your caloric stores. You're losing a lot of calories during the summertime when you're moving around. So, in order to make that up, and that you sound that active, to keep fullness in the muscle, I would also add a little bit of carbohydrate to that increase of food intake, because that extra little bit of carb is going to give you a little bit more energy, but it's going to keep your muscles a little fuller. So you're gonna look bigger. The protein is very good, and if you just did the protein, what would most likely happen with what you've told us with your size and muscularity and body fat levels where they are, is that you would get probably a little bit harder, but you still actually might lose some size. Carbs are very misunderstood. If you understand how to really manipulate your carbohydrates, it can help to keep you a little bit fuller, and also make you look hard, because if the muscle is full, everything is pushing against the skin, so the vascularity becomes more apparent. The muscle actually has a more athletic look. So I wouldn't do just protein. I would play with it. I would do a couple days of a little bit more protein, and then a couple days or a day of a little more carb, and then go back. So 2 day maybe more protein, 1 day a little bit more carb. 2 day more protein, 1 day a little bit more carb. This way you're getting a little bit of a balance.
Yeah. And for a 210-pound male, would you suggest like 1.5 grams per kilogram?
I think that's too much. I know a lot of guys go like 1.5. I like the 1 gram per pound of body weight. I'm really interested in trying to keep the weight small. 1.5 is not bad. I know guys that have gone as high as 2.5, but I like 1 gram, because unless you're really pushing to train with heavy loads and you're really trying to compete and you're really doing the whole thing, 1 gram for your average athletic or even above average athletic individual should suffice, should be enough. And another thing very interesting that I don't do all the time is I don't eat that all 7 days. I might eat that 5 days.
Right.
Or 6 days. And then I always take like either 2 days or 1 day where I decrease that protein amount. Because it helps to you see, one of the most important things is digestion and elimination. If you are eliminating, you can do almost anything. But if you're not eliminating properly.
And we're not talking about diarrhea here. We're talking about, and I hate to talk about poop.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah.
And it's actually a mark of a very healthy system.
Yes.
So
elimination is extremely, extremely important. Extremely important.
Yeah.
And sometimes eating a diet that's maybe a little bit high in protein during the summertime, you might find that you get a little constipation. Yeah. And that constipation is not from having either enough fiber or just decreasing some of that protein so that it can run through the system a little bit better. So I would look at those things very carefully.
And one of the things you just mentioned was fibrous vegetables. You mentioned it before in the show. Very, very important in terms of really the water soluble or the water solubility
Yes.
of those vegetables to be able to take in that water and then push out the toxins,
Correct.
during elimination. So
Correct.
I
Correct.
think increasing the carbohydrate level in this person who's 210 pounds could be done with very, very smartly with vegetables,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then, with other sources of complex carbohydrate.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I have one over here.
Yeah.
It was okay. Hello, love this show. Haha, I am 22-year-old trans male, and I
Hmm.
want to know how I can fix my eating to have a more lean and masculine build.
Hmm.
I'm Asian American, so I cook and I eat food predominantly from my country, and
Hmm.
I haven't fully transitioned yet. No surgery and no hormone treatments.
Hmm.
I have never worked out, so I'm pretty soft too. Is there a way to eat and to train before I move along in my transition? All right. All
Yeah,
right.
it's a
So,
pretty
so
complex question.
yeah, let me just go through that first part again one more
Go
time.
ahead. Yeah.
I'm a 22-year-old trans male, and I want to know how I can fix my eating to have a more lean and masculine build. Okay, eats primarily more Asian food, is kind of soft. What do you think, Dave?
Well, I would say, first of all, eating more of an Asian American cuisine is going to be more vegetables and rice. I'm thinking.
Hmm.
Not sure of the level of protein that this person is actually consuming. What I would say here, just from a physiologic standpoint, is that maintaining a proper diet and also training regimen can do wonders for going through surgery successfully.
Yeah,
And that would be in any kind of surgery, right? The fitter you are,
the better
the
you're gonna.
quicker your recovery time, and the easier it's going to be. The entire journey is going to be. Um, so I, again, this is more in your wheelhouse, really. But I would say that when we think about the previous shows that we've done in terms of training and that kind of thing, this is a person who's never worked out. So what we're going to do is we're going to implement that very, very basic foundational kind of exercise regimen for this person. We're not going to have them like go to the major gym and do 6 hours of
Right.
training. So we need to start out with the foundation, number one. And as far as the eating is concerned, again, I'm thinking that, we need to add maybe a little bit more protein, but it depends on how this person really eats. If they're only eating vegetables and rice, then
Right.
I would say you need to add more protein to it.
Absolutely. Vegetable and rice is typically not going to give the taut look to the body, that tighter
Hmm.
toned look to the body. And as far as exercising and the level of advancement that this person has, focusing on basic as well as some isolated movement and really focusing on peak contractions will help to bring about a much more, again, a much more athletic, healthy, tight toned body. I think also depending on where the surgery is scheduled, your main focus is on being as physically sound and strong as possible. And I wouldn't think so much right now about the actual visual, especially if the surgery is within the next few months. I'm going to try and get super healthy because after the surgery, you're going into that surgery healthy. You're going to come out better, and that's going to be your jump off point. That's going to be where you go in
Yeah,
and you do everything
I
that you
agree.
really want to do.
I agree, but and like we said, there needs to be a foundation built before
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Don't go in unfit,
right.
because
Absolutely not.
your recovery time will be so much
Oh,
longer. And this goes for any kind of surgery, cardiovascular surgery. It
right,
doesn't really matter,
right.
gastric surgery, whatever. But I think that's key. Number one, increasing fitness before surgery, and that can be done through foundational movements,
Right.
and then increasing the amount of protein that you're taking in. But I would love to have more information as far
Absolutely.
as what kind of protein are you taking in, how often are you
Yeah.
taking in
Yeah.
protein,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Uh,
but that would be what I'm thinking about.
yeah.
Um,
And making sure too that the rest is there. You wanna really make sure also your body is getting enough rest for all of these questions, everyone. because if
Yeah.
the body's not resting,
Yeah.
it can't do what it is you're trying to get it to do. It has to be recovering, absorbing what you're putting in, and
Right.
then
Yeah.
eliminating everything as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
those things are very important.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. The absorption is really, really important. And there are two books that I want to recommend to people. One is called The Fats of Life. The other is called The Low Fat Lie. These are
Mm,
both written by Glenn Lawrence. He's a PhD chemistry professor at Long Island University in New York.
mm.
And in his first book, he dispels the myth that that saturated fats cause heart disease, and
Right,
basically says it's not those fats that you find in lean meats, that you find in good oils. It's
right,
not. That's not what's killing people. What's killing people, I hate to say it, guys, is Doritos and Cheetos,
right,
because those are made from polyunsaturated type fats.
right.
These are the fats that are detrimental to the body in terms of free radicals and other things that they do to the vessels, and they cause plaques and
Right.
all of these things. So the fats of life is a examination of the different kinds of fats and the effect of those fats on the body.
Hmm.
The other one is called The Low Fat Lie, which is a really interesting examination of how and you must remember this. You remember Entenmann's cookies? I don't know if you
Oh
remember.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What?
You would sit down with a box of Entenmann's cookies and
Yeah,
eat
yeah,
that
yeah.
a
I used
lot
to hit it.
because there was no fat there was no fat,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And what basically you were eating was sugar, and
Right,
your body was not able to process that, right?
right,
That's the sort of simple carbohydrates, right?
right, right,
So, now you're taking in all this sugar, the body really can't process it. So what does it do? Well, it stores it, because who the hell knows if you're going to eat again,
right.
right? So it's that whole kind of, cyclical nature of how we went about eating many, many decades ago in the 70s, the 80s, even into the 90s. But the point is that, what we're talking about here is that it's got to be whole nutrition from and it doesn't have to be animal sources. You guys, who are vegetarians, it doesn't have to be that. It can be plant sources,
Right,
but it's got to be whole nutrition.
right,
It can't be Doritos, Cheetos, and ice cream, and then expect, hey, my
right,
body's not looking the way it's looking.
right,
Of course not.
right, right, right,
And
right.
and you talk about, and I just want to get back to your point of elimination is extremely important, but the absorption is extremely important. And your body is not absorbing Cheetos. It's
Right,
just not. We're not
right,
made to absorb Cheetos.
right,
So,
right,
these synthetic foods that are made, these non-whole foods that are made that we're constantly consuming is really what's causing the imbalance, and it's causing the decrease in the absorption of these nutrients, and therefore,
right.
elimination is not optimal, and then you get stomach aches, and now you have irritable bowel syndrome, and you
Right,
have all these issues.
right.
And a lot of it has to do with what we're consuming and how the
That's
body's
right.
not absorbing it. It's not
And
bioavailable.
those things destroy the gut bacteria, the gut biome. So you want things that the body can recognize as food, so that the body can absorb it. But when you're putting in large amounts, it's even like taking something like a 16, 20 ounce glass of orange juice. It's a lot of sugar
Yes.
to consume. I mean, look at the way how nature prepared things. Really, the size of an orange, all of these type of things, and then how many of them could you really eat? So how much sugar do you think you're getting? But when you're
Right.
getting a glass of juice, 16, 20 ounces, that's a ton of sugar that
Yeah.
you're taking in. And anything in abundance that more than what the body needs is not good. Regardless if it's from a fruit source or from a white sugar source, it's more than what the body really wants and what it can really use at that point in that time.
I
So
agree.
exercising, or keeping gluttony to a standstill, and understanding that you just want to feed the system. You want to feed the body. You don't want to stuff the body. You want to feel the body. Once the body is satisfied, that's good.
It shuts down.
Leave
Yeah.
it. Leave it.
Two things that I want to mention here. One is a very cliche kind of, idea, which is that, cavemen were not stuffing themselves with food all the time.
No.
Right? They were eating when they were hungry, but now we eat for many, many reasons. We
Right.
eat because we're depressed. We eat because we're bored. We eat because we're social. We eat. So eating around those kind of areas of our lives have changed the way that we eat and why it is that we eat the way
Right.
we eat.
Right.
Um, the other point you made had to do with, you don't need to stuff yourself. Some people feel like they need to stuff themselves
Right.
but if you do that, chances are, and look, I've been guilty of it, as well, is
We've
that you
all done
eat
it.
fast.
Right.
And when you eat fast, the signals in your body do not tell you
To
that you're
shut.
full.
Right.
So you can't, so you're still eating until then you get to the point where like, oh my God, I feel sick.
Right.
Or wow, that was a lot. I feel like I could roll out of this place,
Right. Right.
And so I think, there's a lot of things to learn here, not just from Stu and from me, but from reading books like the books that we mentioned before about how nutrition really works,
Right.
and not only how it plays a role in our lives, because everybody knows it plays a role in our lives, but the ways to utilize nutrition properly, optimally. Use food, I hate to say it, as a fuel rather than as fury. Try not to, you don't
Right.
need to stuff yourself to feel satiated. You
Right.
can feel satiated if you eat fairly slowly and eat the right whole foods.
Right.
And your body will tell you when it's done. It will
Right.
tell you.
Right.
We have those systems and signals built into us over evolution.
Right.
So it's really important to, Stu said it at the beginning of the show, understand nutrition, understand what it can do for you. And if it doesn't do it for you, then it's not working for you. You are an individual and you need to look at it that way.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
They have a saying, right? The gun is only as good as the man holding it, right? The
Yep.
weapon is only as good as the man holding it. Well,
Right.
all of these things, if we look at food and look at it, let's say we want to call it a weapon or not call it a weapon because you think it's bad, but you want to try and understand again, what can it do? What is it? And then understand just the basics of the human body. This body hasn't changed. We're no different. People are trying to come in and say, oh, eat only this or do only. This body hasn't changed. This body needs certain things in order for it to run properly,
Yeah.
right? So I might be able to live on a vegetarian diet given a certain environment, weather, level of caloric expenditure that I have to do. All of those things are workable. In another situation, I might not be able to live on a diet like that because I might need something that's more manually, intense. I might be in a colder climate where I need a little bit more fats in my diet. Understand the human body the best of your ability. Start to understand what foods are available to you. Don't try and understand every single thing. Look at the basic ones that are right in front of you. Well, learn about an apple, learn about chicken.
Right.
It's
Right.
basic because
I agree.
once you get these, then you start to branch out. You start looking at everything else,
Yep.
and then start to plug those things in that we spoke about today. Because Dave is 100% on with everything that he said.
Yeah. So we've we've been talking for a little bit. We've been discussing nutrition, kind of optimal nutrition, answering a lot of questions. And so what I think we're going to do is we're going to, kind of table it for now. And when we have a registered dietitian on here, we're going to be asking some very, very specific questions. Again, nutrition is about biochemistry. It's about
Right.
understanding the way the substances really react in the body. So, I think it'd be a good idea to kind of, let our RD answer some really specific questions.
Excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So this was a great show. We want to thank everyone for listening in and for sending in their questions. And
Thank you.
it's really it's wonderful because, I think, and I speak really for myself, is I'm learning a ton from what's out there and what people really desire, what their situations are. And it really helps me to kind of formulate answers that I think, again, from my experience and from my own head, um, what those answers might be to help those individuals. So we're really out here just to provide some sound information, and really tell people that, look, wellness is a journey and health is a journey, and it's not done in 6 minutes.
That's right.
So we need to understand that this is something that is, physically difficult in many cases, sometimes psychologically difficult, but something that Stu and I think are very much devoted to. So we want to put that out there as far as as you guys and your questions, and thank you so much
Thank you.
for listening in.
Thank you for the edge.
So,
Thank you.
all right.